All right, we're good.
All right, we'll call the regular meeting of November 17th, 2020 to order. We could have the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Sean Douglas,
Here.
Michael Howry,
Here.
Michelle Hayes,
Here.
Brian Horvath,
Here.
Gene Sensi.
Here.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath, Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Vote is 5-0.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of October 20th, 2020?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Same.
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0-1.
All right, we'll begin board member reports tonight with a moment of silence. It's always sad to learn of someone's passing, especially when it is a member of our Madison family. Recently, we learned of the passing of Charles Guy, a former teacher and coach for the Madison Local School District. Charles was born in Homestead, Pennsylvania, and passed away in Madison on August 1st, 2020, at the age of 83. Charles graduated with a bachelor's degree from Waynesburg College and began teaching English at Madison Memorial High School until 1964. During the 1959 to 1960 school year, Charles started the wrestling program for the Blue Streaks. He then worked at co-manufacturing until his retirement in 2001. Charles will be missed by his daughters, Sandra, Susan, and Marianne. Sadly, his son Charles preceded him in death. All of us at Madison Schools extend our deepest and most sincere sympathy to Charles' family and friends. Okay, I'll just say a brief word about Mr. Guy. Mr. Guy was my mother's teacher, and she remembers him and she still talks about him today and says that he was the best teacher she ever had. And my mom doesn't give compliments out very easily. So.
Very nice.
Are there any board members wishing to give a report? All right, seeing none, we will open the first public participation portion for the evening. This is on agenda items only. Anyone wishing to address the board, if you could state your name and address, please.
I am going to take Jeff Thompson and ask him if he wants to unmute. If he doesn't, then he won't have anything to say. Let's see. So he's unmuted. Emily and Gretchen, I can see your video. So you want something, just wave.
Not saying anything, Mike?
No.
All right, reports and recommendations of the treasurer.
Thank you. I have several items to talk about, some on the agenda, some not. The first, I want to thank the team that took the time last week to assist with getting the Chromebooks ready to be sent home. As you know, all of our Chromebooks, the power cords are zip tied in so they don't get damaged. So we had all those carts in the district where we had to go cut all the zip ties. Of the 6 people that were working on it, one of the days last week, only one of them was actually a tech team member. The others were Leanna Revere, who is our EMIS secretary or EMIS assistant, Donna Brumbaugh, who works in my office, and Greg Brumbaugh, who is her husband. And last but not least, I grabbed Sheila in the morning and we headed out and worked on all the carts all day. So we were able to do the entire district in one day. And that worked out really well because we'd already quarantined one class at South the day before. We'd quarantined another class that day, and then all of South the next day. And then the entire quarantine went remote with those classrooms. And then the entire district starting on Monday. So all the students in the district were able to have their Chromebook available to take home with them on their last day of in-person instruction. So I need to thank them because we all just dropped what we were doing and went out and did zip ties. So the joke was they let me hold a tool, which I didn't cut anything or we're good to go. Second, hotspots, the mobile internet spots that we got through Verizon. I originally ordered 15, but after only 3 weeks, we only used one. And while through December, they're paid for by a grant, I still didn't feel like the grant should have to pay for 11 that we wouldn't be using. So I sent them back and we were able to avoid any charge for returning them or using them. Since then, the other 3 have been distributed, and yesterday I placed an order for 15 more, and they will either be delivered tomorrow or the next day, and we will get them out to students. As soon as I get them in hand, I'll let the principals know. I know there's several students now that return to the library to get their hotspots, and I think the library is out. So hopefully we will get these in quick and get them to the students that need them for their virtual learning. The audit for the fiscal year end ending June 30th, 2020 is still going on. They actually just started back up a couple weeks ago now that the federal program testing rules have been issued. They've requested more information. Once again, we give them everything that they need, and I have not heard that there are any issues. Last week, we completed technically it's not an audit, it's an agreed upon procedures, but it's our Medicaid audit. That's what we call it. It's just easier, people understand that. It's where we get Medicaid funding for services provided to Medicaid eligible students. And then what goes with that is an audit every year to verify the people that we have assigned for that billing and the services that are provided. And the IEPs for all call for all that information. We go through that every year. And again, this year there were no changes. So they issued the report, I filed it, and we should get our balance due. It usually takes a couple of months. So, and the balance due was pretty much what I expected it to be and has already been built in the budget. So any questions about the non-agenda items?
I have one, just so that I can understand. We had 15 hotspots, we sent 11 back, but now we've ordered more?
Yes,
Okay,
because I had a 30-day window in which to return them where we didn't have to pay for them. And
okay,
if it was all covered by the grant, I wouldn't have sent them back, but the issue is going to be, we have to sign what turns out to be a 6 or 9 month contract with Verizon.
mhm,
And I can only use the grant to pay for the monthly charge through December 30th. So if we have to use them into January, February, and March, the school district has to pay for those. I certainly didn't want 11 sitting around not being used. Like I said, we waited 3 weeks and nothing. I mean, one got used and there was no indication that the others were going to be used. And then all of a sudden, the last 3 went in 2 days. So I immediately got more ordered, and it's a 2-day turnaround. So we'll get them in.
Yeah. And you said these are going out to students. Where are they going? Are they going to specific students?
They go to specific students. I have a list of the hotspot that's being given to the student and the phone number associated with it. So that student is responsible. That way, if they don't have internet access in their house, they have a Chromebook. The Chromebook will pick up the Wi-Fi and they'll be able to do virtual learning from their house, where right now they may not be able to unless they can get Wi-Fi somewhere else.
And so we only have 15 students that need it?
I don't even know if we have 15 yet. I think the number right now is about 8.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
we
great.
just haven't heard that a lot of students have needed it. We didn't give any, we didn't have to worry. We weren't made aware that any student needed it during the shutdown last year, or would have been looking at hotspots last year.
We had a few, and the library had, I think, like 10, and I think those got loaned out, and that's how that went. So people have access in this community. It's not the best sometimes, but they do have access.
All right. Okay, thank you.
All right, so one of the items on the agenda is the resolution to endorse the Fair School Funding Plan as introduced in Senate companion bill to substitute House Bill 305 and to encourage the 133rd General Assembly to expedite the passage of the bill. So I'm going to read part of testimony that's going to be given. It's not going to be given by me, but I've signed on, and I don't know if Angela's had the chance yet, to
Yes.
support this person's testimony. And I think it really lays out why we need the bill passed. So the Ohio General Assembly has failed to create a funding system that meets Ohio's constitutional standard of securing a thorough and efficient system of common schools throughout the state. That was the whole basis behind the DeWalt. Over the last 25 years of me being a treasurer, the biennial budget process relative to school funding has delivered unpredictability. Each budget cycle creates apprehension among school treasurers and superintendents as we wait in anticipation to learn of the nuanced changes to what has been an inconsistent and illogical methodology to funding schools in this great state. Simply, Ohio's school system for funding schools has been a series of ever-changing patches, band-aids, and budgeting quirks. Ohio generally allocates a budgetary figure for primary and secondary education and then determines how funding calculations and variables must be amended to keep the total cost within that budgetary allocation. Basically, what they do is they give a flat, a dollar amount to all of education and say, okay, we're going to back into the formula. The previous biennium budget identified 503 school districts out of 610, that's 82%, either capped in their funding or on the guarantee, which is a testament that Ohio's funding model is not effective. We are one of those districts that have been on the guarantee since I've been here. Another example, gain caps, subsidies for high performing districts, subsidies to districts based on third grade reading passage rates, acceleration formulas that exacerbate funding reductions if a district has lost more than 5.5% of its ADM, and competition for straight A funds serves as a few of the examples by which Ohio has changed the allocation model over the years, but in the process has created winners and losers. Hundreds of districts in Ohio have fallen victim to school funding practices. And that's what happens every budget cycle. It pits district against district based on wealth or advancement or anything else. Some of the tenets of Ohio schools funding, such as opportunity grant, targeted assistance, economically disadvantaged funding, and K-3 literacy funding are reminiscent of the building blocks of yesterday, but these components and others before them are examples of Ohio's acknowledgement of the inputs necessary to appropriately fund schools. By now, each of you is aware that all public schools are on a guarantee of Ohio districts, that all schools on a guarantee are funded on the formula. And this fact serves as an undisputed evidence that the system is broken. The Ohio Fair School Funding Plan is our state's second serious attempt at trying to create a thorough and efficient system of educating Ohio youth. The input-based funding approach is a more logical method for funding schools, as it is attempting to determine the true cost of educating a typical child. That is not a statement that has been in any funding formula since I've been a treasurer for 25 years. The funding components of the Fair School Funding Plan are based upon research and will remain current by the plan's recommended study groups. It is widely understood the teacher in the classroom is the most critical component to student achievement, and one of the most important facets in that base cost is the focus on classroom instruction, with 60% of the funding driven by research-based staffing needs. Also, by taking into consideration specials, art, music, substitute teachers, and professional development, it is evident that the Cup-Patterson work group was being thoughtful and thinking holistic as it attempted to determine all applicable inputs into the classroom instruction component of the base cost. The inclusion of a funding component in the base cost for security, social emotional learning, technology, and other learning supports are critical facets that must be included in any input-based funding mechanism. While Ohio districts are extremely appreciative of the governor's student health and wellness dollars and the House's improvement on the original allocation, the Ohio Fair School Funding Plan goes further by infusing this idea as a permanent component in the base cost. Historically, Ohio schools have been mandated to address these issues according to societal needs and legislative will. I'm confident you've heard education leaders complain of unfunded mandates. However, the Fair Funding Plan provides for the funding of those directives, with the unfunded mandates becoming funded mandates and something roundly supported by colleagues across the state. Simply put, the base cost is a conceptual funding model that is based on research-based predictable data. The base cost, when coupled with the categorical funding components and in light of the distribution model, create a funding system that moves Ohio in the right direction. The Ohio Fair School Funding Plan provides for a system that is predictable, reliable, sustainable, and scalable. This model provides the predictability district leaders so desire when attempting to forecast and plan long-term. So I sent the board an email that described the various components of this plan. And Cup-Patterson are the two representatives that are going to be pushing this forward. And the urgency is they want to try and get this through the system by the end of this calendar year, because I don't remember which one is term limited and won't be back. And we have good support in both the House and the Senate for it. So that's the purpose of the resolution on the board agenda tonight, is to have Madison support this plan. It has been 3 years of people's lives coming up with the methodology and the funding needed to properly fund a school in Ohio. And like I said, first time in 25 years, it isn't, hey, this is what we have left divided by the number of kids, and that's what you're going to get per pupil. It is, here's what it takes to educate a student based on certain class size limits and other needs. Let's build that into the base, and then everything else is funded through categories. And one of the big thing is you get paid for the kids that you educate. We'll still get our open enrollment money. We'll still get students that we might be educating from another district for another reason. We won't lose the money for kids that we aren't educating. Our outgoing open enrollment, our charter school kids. Those will be funded directly by the state. And I think once the state has to take out of their own coffers for charter schools, they may actually pay more attention to the fact that they don't have to follow the same rules. They may or may not provide the same education. Those kids may or may not be learning as well as they do in a public school, and they might do something about it. Certainly, if they're paying the full freight, the state, to a charter school, they will make sure that a charter school is never unauditable. That never happens, rarely happens in an Ohio public school. It happens all the time in charter schools. Angela, you were going to say something.
No,
I got on my soapbox.
I totally back this legislation. Mike Hanlon from Chardon, the superintendent, has been very active in this. He's put countless hours in on top of running his district because he truly is very passionate about the work that this group has done. We have waited a long time for it. Last year, they were trying to deal with it a little bit and they couldn't get it off the ground because they were also dealing with the vouchers. Well, one of the other things in the lame duck legislature that they have, you've probably seen come across your email, are the vouchers. They're tackling that again, and they're trying to fast track some of the voucher language I'm sure we will get an update on Thursday from Tony where that sits, because that was a big issue last spring, if you remember, that districts that never had vouchers were all of a sudden going to lose students to vouchers, and that was going to come right out of their general fund allocations. So this legislative assembly is very, very busy on top of that and dealing with the pandemic. So it'll be interesting to see if we can get this done beforehand. I think one of the things that they have been adamant in every meeting I've been in is that while it's a 6-year phase in, they aren't tying the hands of future governing bodies to phase it in. They've got to give them room to do the legislation that they need. Isn't that what you've heard, Mike?
Yeah, and the voucher issue becomes moot under the new funding formula. It no longer is taking away money that may or may not have been given to the public school and given it to a charter school or another non-public. It would be directly funded by the state.
So Mike, what changes take place with property taxes?
None. This is the, we're funded roughly half and half state and local. This is the state part. Property taxes and the millage and everything like that stays exactly the same.
So Mike, do you know, like, the total in the budget currently, what they pay and what the projected amount of the total budget is going to be?
I know the dollar amount for public schools goes up by about $1.6 billion.
Mhm.
It's hefty, and I want to say it's $6 billion now, something like that.
Okay.
I had the file over there. I can go grab it if you'd like the answer.
Well, that, or you can just,
Let me
email
check
it
real
later.
quick. And I don't have the final number. I only have the page we're on. Sorry,
Okay.
but I believe it's those numbers. But I'll follow up and give you the exact numbers.
Okay. Thank you.
Going back to Mike's question, I'm wondering, you're saying that they're determining the amount needed to actually, fund education. And if that's true, then I think your local taxpayers are going to say, well, then what do you need my levy money for if you have the amount from the state that it actually takes to educate a student?
There are things it doesn't consider. The plan is a framework. It has class sizes on it, which are a little higher than most districts would tolerate. So we would need local funds for that. If there's any extracurricular types, there is money for busing, but I'm not sure it's fully funded. So the dollar amount turns out to be in the $7,000 range. And right now, even though we're low in the state, we're spending over $9,000 per student. So it doesn't fully fund the entire educational and extracurricular experience of a student. It does fund what is bare minimum necessary to educate a child.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't understand that was the direction that question was going.
Well, that's how I interpret it.
Okay.
And you say this has support from both sides of the aisle?
It does.
It actually does, yeah. Which is surprising.
In the Senate, it's Vernon Sykes and Peggy Lehner, who have served on the Education Committee. Peggy is the Republican and Vernon Sykes is the Democrat, and they are very influential in the legislature. They're trying to fast track it because we are entering a biennium budget, so they want the framework to help in this biennium cycle.
So are there opponents of it from other groups that receive state funding? Because obviously the state only has so much. And if they're increasing education by 1 point something billion, that means they're taking it from somebody else.
when I looked at the list of people that had testified, there were only proponents listed. So I don't know if the opponents haven't gotten their chance yet, but there were only proponents listed. And we haven't heard that the other state agencies are stepping up and saying, we want more too, or you can't give them part of ours. I just haven't heard that.
I haven't
Okay.
either.
Because frankly, it'll be nice if we can just get the philosophy in front of them and they approve that. And then it's not going to be fully funded for at least 6 years. So there may be growth in the state budget that will help fund this plan a little more each year. Frankly, it doesn't, the first couple of years, if they're phasing it in, it doesn't affect us at all. You know, we're still going to be on the guarantee. So any other questions on that? Before I forget, the Board of Education received a note of thanks from Marie Zollner, thanking for the group of Key Club members that raked and picked up and disposed of all our leaves. So she was very appreciative of that. And then before I go on, there's 2 more items on the agenda. Looking for approval tonight. The first is the Power for Schools resolution. That'll allow the districts to continue to be part of the electricity purchasing group that we've been through the House Schools Council. We've been with them for many years, and I think I talked to, emailed the board about how they intervened on a surcharge that First Energy was attempting to pass on. This was probably 5 years ago. And they intervened and the surcharge was taken away because it was not part of our contract. And then the final one is the hometown ticketing. That'll allow all sports ticketing to go online. There will be opportunities for other groups to be able to use it. It's being used by a lot of schools statewide, and it was used by the Ohio High School Athletic Association during the football playoffs this year. So talked to hometown ticketing. I've talked to other districts. John Dragus had asked if this is something that could be done, and it's time to stop handling cash. An auditor would love the fact that we're going completely online. People can hold their tickets on their phone. It's just like every other event you're going to now. Rarely do you see paper tickets. It's all on the app on the phone. All right. Anything else?
Michael, I remember you introducing the concept of Cut Patterson a year or 2 ago. I confess I didn't go online and read entirely what that is. We're basically, and I read this, but I'm a C on the disc, so I have tons of questions. We're basically trusting that this is good. So, and we don't vote the laws in. I just have a lot of questions, and you like the first one, which was, well, actually the second whereas in D. Rolfe. The Ohio Supreme Court declared that Ohio school funding system was overlapped on local property taxes and as such was inherently discriminatory to children based on where they reside for disparities existing between communities, affluence and impoverishment. That's existed for a long time, and I get that problem. But I think that's a huge issue. I think that is the issue that, as far as I know, that, I think has been unfair, whether to city schools. Just can you quickly help me understand how this bill, once again, in layman's terms, overcomes that disparity, that discrimination between an affluent community and besides simply the charter schools? How does that help overcome this?
It relies less on the local wealth of the district to provide education. Now, that's not saying they couldn't provide over and above, but what we're trying to do is get a minimal, the minimum amount from the state, and the local taxpayers can fund something else. It doesn't make a lot of sense that a student in Madison with 20 mills, Madison's 20 mills can generate a certain dollar amount. Here it would be, $6 million. In Riverside, that 20 mills would generate $20 million. Now, yes, they have more students, but do they have that proration of additional students. And that's what's been inherently wrong with the system. The money you get to educate a student mostly is dependent on where you live. And if it shouldn't be the local wealth level that determines it. We are
Sure.
all students operating, districts operating for our students in the state of Ohio. The state of Ohio needs to step up and say, we are going to educate these students, whether they live in Madison or Orange or Beechwood or Geneva. And by the way, the Geneva treasurer was one of the committee members who spent 3 years on this, Kevin Lilly. That shouldn't matter. The ability of a local school district to raise money should not impact the education of the child. And
It's the
ability
philosophy.
and
That's a
actual-
great philosophy.
and that's what this does. I mean, I will tell you, I have not been excited about the school funding change because most of the time it's pie in the sky. We just want more money, blah, blah, blah. This is based on the research they did. It's 60 some bucks a kid for technology. Well, they figured out what technology does a kid need and how much does it cost. And they built it into the plan. It's not, hey, we
Sure.
want $7,000 instead of $6,000. Those don't go anywhere. And I've never been excited over a possible change in school funding because most of the time without this type of research base, it's just asking for more money. And that's not the way to go about it. So.
Thanks. I can truly say that since I've been on the board, I've never heard you more excited about something.
I know.
So
Sad,
other than
isn't
your
it?
spaghetti and meatballs, this is it. So
Yeah.
I thank you.
I mean, I will tell you, if it doesn't pass, at least we have a measure of, hey, we're getting 80% of the funding from the state that we need to educate a student. We now have a number that says, this is what the state should be giving us. And I get they can't afford it all. I get that. But at least we now know, somebody says, what are we getting from the state to educate $6,000? Why? Because, well, actually it's 6,040 because we got 6,020 the year before and 6,000 the year before. Why? Because that's what they gave us. I'm excited I'm able to answer the question, when we get fully funded. This is why we're getting the money. I mean, it's a lot of money to the district, but we don't have a good explanation of why do we get it. So what other questions do you have? I'll settle down now.
Settle down, Mike.
What other questions did you have, Mike?
Good.
I'm sorry?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the main one. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to move on to the items in the agenda, if that's okay. Let me make a note here. Okay, so the first item is to approve the financial reports for all funds, fund-to-fund transfer report, and the check payment register for October 2020.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Second,
Any discussion? Roll call?
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Gene Sensi,
yes,
John Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery,
Yes.
vote is 5-0. The next is to adopt a resolution to endorse the Fair School Funding Plan as introduced in the Senate Companion Bill to House Bill 305 and to encourage the 133rd General Assembly to expedite the passage of the bill.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Gene Sensi,
Yes,
John Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
vote is 5-0. The next is to accept the following donations. A generous donation of gift certificates from Pizza Roto to Madison High School to be used as PBIS and Streak of the Month awards. A generous donation of gift certificates from Parents Holiday to Madison High School to be used as Streak of the Month awards. Generous donation of free stays at Holiday Inn, Madison to Madison High School to be used as Streak of the Month awards. I'm assuming that is for the teaching staff. Generous donation of gift certificates from Duffy's Tavern to Madison High School to be used as Streak of the Month awards. Same there. Generous donation of yard signs from the Warren team Howard Hanna to Madison High School to be used for Streak of the Month. Generous donation of gift certificates from Domino's Pizza to Madison High School to be used for Streak of the Month awards. Generous donation of gift certificates from Madison Dairy Queen to Madison High School to be used for Streak of the Month awards. A generous donation of gift certificates from the Short Tavern to Madison High School to be used for Streak of the Month awards. A of gift certificates from the 528 Tavern to Madison High School to be used for Streak of the Month awards. Generous donation of gift certificates from Madison Subway to Madison High School to be used for Streak of the Month awards. A generous donation of 650 disposable masks from Perry Nuclear Power Plant to North Elementary School to be used as needed. Generous donation of gift cards to Open Door Coffee Shop from Hearn Plumbing, Heating and Air to North Elementary School to be used for their coffee bean initiative. Generous donation of gift cards and cash from Terry G's Car Wash to Madison High School Streak of the Month program and PBIS. Generous donation of school supplies from Robert Burgard, manager of the Lawn and Garden Department at Madison Walmart, to Madison local schools to be used as needed. A generous donation of native plants from Klein Nursery to Madison High School Ecology for their Native Plants of Ohio Living Library. Generous donation of $300 from Michael Warren Howard Hanna to South Elementary School to be used for Streak of the Week. Generous donation of gift certificates from Nifty 50 Diner and Duffy's Tavern to South Elementary School to be used for staff recognition. A generous donation of $87 from Stacy Allen to North Elementary School to be used as needed. And finally, a generous donation of Chick-fil-A boxed lunches from Crossroads Community Church to the staff at South Elementary.
All right, Michelle, you're on.
Like I do every time, I just thank everyone for the donations. Our community is very generous with our schools, so thank you very, very much.
We have a motion.
Move.
Second,
Any discussion? Roll call?
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howry,
yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes,
Brian Horvath.
yes,
Vote is 5-0. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Report to the administrative team.
My report is going to sound a whole lot like the Lake County General Health District, I think, just to give you some updates of where we have been, where we're at currently in regards to COVID-19 in the district. I guess I was very shocked, but really not too surprised, but it just seeing it on the list. But it painted a grim picture for Lake County today during the press conference. And it mirrors what Ron Graham has been saying for the last couple weeks. Yesterday in our meeting with superintendents, Ron said we are averaging about 300 cases a day. And he stated that we could be up to 800 cases a day by the beginning of December, and that's just a couple weeks away. And we are number 4 in the county counts as far as spread within the community. If you recall, a few weeks ago, we were at the bottom of spread within the community, I think just about a month ago. You know, I would say, oh, well, it's not too bad. We're only this far from the bottom. And somehow we have inched up to the top of the list. And we have seen the impact of that growth in our school community last week. I mean, we were, I think, shocked at how fast it turned. On Monday, we were like, okay, there's a case here. Maybe we can get through it. By the end of the week, we had, 2 or 3 grade levels at South. Quarantining before we shut the building down on Friday. We have a 6th grade group quarantining at the middle school. We have several teachers quarantining at the high school. We have had several staff who have tested positive, as well as students who have tested positive. And Dave does the reporting every week for the Ohio Department of Health, and he will have to do, another report based on things that came in after you reported yesterday. We have one of our central office administrators quarantining at home because she was exposed to somebody, one of our teachers who had tested positive and is showing some symptoms. So we've got a lot going on. And when I approached all of you on Thursday about going remote, it was because we had reached that tipping point that we either are going to educate kids or we're going to quarantine them. And, trying to and having to quarantine staff, then you don't have the staff for the kids that are in school. So it was a very stressful week last week to reach this conclusion, but I think it was the right conclusion. As a result, I can't say it enough, and I'll probably, again, put it in an update, that as we get to the point where we're able to return from remote learning, we need people to remember, if someone in the household is being tested, you keep people home. You do not send them to school, whether that's staff, students, they need to stay home until they know the outcome of that test. I think this message is very important because that caused some of our quarantining. People need to keep their kids home when they're sick. Right now, we are at a very contagious phase of this virus, and in the meetings with the health commissioners, they've basically said, if it looks like COVID, it's probably COVID at this point. We will continue to work with the health department to ensure what we are doing is in the best interest of our students and staff and able to keep everybody safe. As I said at the onset, the decision to go remote was not an easy one because we know that the kids are better off in school. We want them in school. Gretchen and I talk often that we took this as far as we could possibly take it, and it was not a happy day for anybody when we had to make that decision. And when we do go back, which right now is targeted at December 1st, but that all depends on what happens in the next 2 weeks. It's no guarantee it's December 1st. It's just, we've got to see where this virus is going to go in this region. We need people to do the things so that we can keep those schools open once we do. And we want to ensure that. So it's going to be a lot of communicating with the community on what that looks like. Sports are on pause until December 1st. There are no teams practicing in any organized manner. Coaches can reach out virtually to their teams, but there is no organized practices, anything going on in the building. One of the things in all the meetings I've been in with the health commissioners in the last 2 weeks of both Lake and Geauga counties are they really think that a longer pause would be wise. The Ohio High School Athletic Association surveyed superintendents, athletic directors, and principals again for winter sports. And one of the things was, would a pause be beneficial? So I don't know if they're looking at doing that, but I do know Willoughby is remote until the middle of January, and I think their winter sports are on that pause until then. So, obviously, if we don't have anybody to play, then that makes the decision that much easier. We are going to be talking as a region again on Thursday about this. One of the other things that's happened as a result of this increase in cases is a few weeks ago, Todd Baker said, well, we don't need to meet anymore, as the fire district, the police, the village administrator, the township administrator, and the schools, and he restarted those meetings this past week. And as we are all remote in our homes tonight, The township and village are also going remote and not meeting in person as a group right now. That's how fast this thing has changed. And so it's a little surprising that it happened as fast as it did, because we were doing so well for so long as a region, and all of a sudden it exploded. Any questions about that before I sort of go to some shout outs and all this?
Yeah, it's not so much a question as a statement, Angela. I have heard chatter, and I definitely tried to reassure the people that I've heard it from. But when we quarantined 90 students in a day, somehow that got translated to we have 90 cases of COVID.
No.
Can you please, and I tried to explain this to people, reassure them that that is not the case, but hopefully people will watch this. And can you please explain that although we've had more cases than we'd like to have, by no means did we have 90 cases of COVID in a day. It is not that, it is severe, but it's not that severe.
I am going to turn this over to the contact tracer extraordinaire, Dave Bull, who works very closely with the sanitarian at the health department, Tanya, who we've been working with. So Dave, do you want to explain how those quarantines occurred last week?
Sure. And because we've had quite a few in recent days, I don't have the exact statistics, but I think on the day that you're speaking about, where we did have a number of classes quarantined, that was either 2 or 3 students who tested positive, had been in classrooms in close proximity with other students for, good lengths of time. And so the recommendation is that all of those classes are quarantined to monitor for, any COVID symptoms for 14 days. And so then we go into a mode where we're, making a lot of phone calls, having parents come and pick the kids up so that it doesn't continue to spread throughout the building. I think one of the challenges in anytime you're trying to control this is you're always working a few days behind, because the student goes home feeling ill. A day or two later, you find out they tested positive, and then you're looking back to see who had been in contact. The question I always get asked is, were they in close proximity for 15 minutes or longer? Were they wearing masks? That kind of thing. So were they indoors? Were they outdoors? And based on that, generally, if someone was in an enclosed room with someone for 30 minutes or longer, even with masks, they're going to end up being quarantined. So yeah, it was, and I heard that also that there was a rumor that we had 90 cases of it that went home on that day. It was either 2 or possibly 3, I can't remember, but the students coming in, a whole bunch of students being exposed, leads to that.
Yes.
And right now at the counties, neither county has the contact tracers in place to adequately contact trace every case. In fact, in our meeting yesterday, it was the Geauga County commissioner that said they were sending out letters of quarantine dated from November 5th to November 16th. Well, the quarantine was up. And so that's how far behind they are. We are in day 2 because administratively, because one of our administrators has tested positive, and we were all in a meeting last week in the boardroom, socially distanced, masked up, with hand sanitizing from, touching any shared papers. We were not eating, so we did not have to quarantine, but the health department is supposed to be tracking at the Ohio Department of Health, track our symptoms. And we have not, this is day 2, and we have not gotten a text. So we may on the last day of having to monitor any symptoms get the text. But we're truly right now behind the 8 ball at the state and in our region. Any additional questions about some of that?
Yeah, I have I have a statement as well. You've said this. I want to maybe encourage you to say it again. Sometimes when it is said and bracketed by so many other stats, it might get lost, and you probably can't say it too often. But people need to understand that it's teachers that get it, it's administrators that get it, it's custodians that get it, it's school bus drivers that get it. And so sometimes the concern is, and I understand this, per the recent letter that was written to you, to me, and to Mr. Graham, that even the lieutenant governor has said that school can be the safest place for a child because of the protocol. It's not just about the children, it's all the custodians and the bus drivers that make it difficult to continue to juggle schedules as well as the safety concerns. I'm thinking maybe that might be a good thing to say to our community in a standalone statement.
Absolutely. We got to the point last week where staffing our buildings and our bus garage, because we also had, because of one case, 6 drivers that had to quarantine as a result of that one case. When we don't have the staff to safely operate our buildings, then we can't educate our students. And that is where we have reached in this pandemic. We have been very fortunate up to this point, up to last week, that we had very few cases. We had very few instances amongst our staff. You know, we had that one situation with the custodians, and they were just coming back to work last week. And we had to, you know, go to the remote learning because staffing became an issue.
Yeah, I was just, I guess it's maybe a crest for those thousands of people in our community that didn't just hear that statement, they don't understand. And, you know, without all the health district stats around it to kind of confuse them or distract them, maybe just that simple release could be helpful. That what you just said. Just a thought.
Well, and one of the things that we're seeing happen is we had one of the custodians that was quarantined because of exposure to another employee. Well, the spread is so wide in the community that one of his family members is under the, you know, being tested for COVID. So he had to get sent home today. So these are the things that we're going to run into until we get that community spread down. Dave, do you want to add anything?
Well, just that, you know, as we've had folks go out on leave, we've really tried to be creative in finding solutions to keep the building open. You know, when we had nearly half our custodial staff out, we brought in additional cleaners to make sure that our buildings were sanitized each night, so we could keep our doors open. So, you know, to get to a point where you have to say we're closing our doors and going to go virtual, you have to have really exhausted, you know, just about anything you can come up with to be able to keep moving forward.
Sure. I had someone make a statement to me that said, school districts are the only ones that can close because they don't have enough staff. Everybody else has to work around it and do double duty. And I said, well, you know, when you have teachers that are being sent home in quarantine, you know, normally on a normal year, we can call a substitute and a substitute will come in. When you've got 3 or 4 teachers in a building that are quarantined, do you really think a substitute is going to come and work for us? And I would imagine that we're having a difficult time getting substitutes to come.
Last night, I got a text from another superintendent because he knew we were remote and said, do you have any extra subs that you could send to me? So it is a pervasive problem throughout the region. having enough subs to, especially when you're quarantining staff, to make things work. And you can't move kids around or double up classes or do any of those kinds of things that in a pinch that we've done in the past, because you have to keep the social distancing. Kind of like when I was on the call with the fire district yesterday, and they talked about not having warming shelters now because you can't bring people together in a congregate setting, because you could have then create a super spreader event. So, you know, COVID has rethought a lot of ways people do things.
And Michelle, in anticipation of that substitute problem, Angela hired 10 additional permanent building subs going into this year.
Right.
So she anticipated, and actually I thought it was too many, but I was wrong. She anticipated the staff being out and trying to replace them before they were needed, and that still didn't provide us with enough coverage.
Yeah.
So we went from 4 to 14 and it still wasn't enough.
Mike, did I just hear a Fonzie moment?
Oh yeah, I was wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, you're doing 14. How can we afford 14? Yeah, I apologize, Angela. I was wrong. So yeah.
Sorry.
Doesn't happen often.
Yeah, so it's not been easy, and hopefully that we can get through this surge and people listen to some of the things that are being asked of them in the next several weeks, so that these cases go back down as a state, because those numbers, a month and a half ago, we had 1,000 cases and we thought that was a lot. I think on Friday when we saw 8,000, that was just like heart palpitation moment. So, you know, people are trying to do things. It's, you know, hopefully they work.
I'd like to say that I commend the staff at Madison School District. You guys did an outstanding job. Compared to some of the other schools in our county, we were one of the last ones to make this decision. I think you should be very proud of yourselves, and I know it didn't come easy. So I'm proud to serve this board in this school district because of this. So thank you.
Well,
You guys did really good.
and to share with you that, you know, the one administrator that has it right now, every communication says we need to be back in person.
Yeah.
So those are the things that our team wants, our teachers want. We know it's best for our kids. So, you know, I guess I sound like a broken record, but we need to wear the mask, hand sanitize, and social distance so that we can get these kids back in school.
It did rise suddenly. I know more people that tested positive in the last week and a half. Before that, I could have said I didn't know anybody that actually had it. Today, I can tell you there's like 12 people I know close to me that have tested positive. It happened like that. And,
Yeah.
you know, we just fell victim of it. We fell victim of the widespread in our county. It's nothing that Madison School did wrong. You know, you guys were outstanding. So thank you.
Thank you. So to that end, if there are no other questions about the actual process of the last couple weeks, I do want to give a shout out to, you know, my administrative team, the teachers, the support staff, our technology people, our food service workers, our custodial staff. You know, they have done a phenomenal job, you know, with every situation that's been thrown at them this year. And, you know, for our teachers, we've got teachers that are, you know, especially at the secondary level, that are teaching, you know, they were doing in-person learning and virtual classes, and now, you know, flipping all of them to virtual. Overall, I think the first day of remote learning went well. I know there's some glitches. I mean, obviously, to start remote learning as a calamity day because of the widespread power outages, we just got to say 2020 whenever these things happen, I think. You know, just chalk it up to being 2020, because here we are, we're going remote and we're calling a calamity day at 6 in the morning because 1,500 homes were without power at the start of yesterday. And we still had staff last night without power in whatever community they lived in. They figured out ways to get it done. And if they couldn't get it done today, they let their students know, and they worked hard so that we can get it done tomorrow. But again, I just want to applaud our teachers because it is stressful, and especially when we had to quarantine groups last week. The professionalism of this staff is second to none. The expectations are different. I think we have done a good job setting that with our families, and they're doing the best to make it work. I know that the ultimate challenge, especially at the younger levels, are that parents have to work. And, you know, that was the big message in the governor's press conference today, that we need to do things so that we can keep our economy going. Because if we don't keep our economy going, that wonderful bill that Mike had talked about and all the resolutions, we're not going to have any money to fund it. So, you know, we have to do what we need to do to keep the economy going so that there is money to fund our schools. I mean, this is a vicious circle that we're living in with this pandemic. The challenges are different than in the spring with COVID being more pervasive, and we are really having to slow that spread in a different way. And again, I appreciate the parents and the students and staff who have made this work. So that's what I have on COVID. I have a couple other quick things. The Senator Eklund's office has reached out to me on my letter to Governor DeWine. I have responded with a potential meeting date. I haven't heard back from his office, but it's good to know that he wants to meet before leaving office, and he's also going to invite Senator-elect Serino so that we can start talking to them about the unique needs of our community and the financial challenges that we have. So I will keep you updated when that meeting is set. Mike's going to be in attendance, and Sean is board president. Tomorrow at 4, North Elementary's indoor rainforest will be on the Fox 8 News. They, throughout the pandemic, have been doing like a little good news section, and they pick things up off of social media. And so they saw the rainforest, and they're doing a little segment on it. And as Mike shared and Brian, the Wagon Wheel has started doing remote spaghetti dinners. You know, you pick it up, you take it out, and they've been, the North PTO figured out a way to do a, you know, virtual auction. So there are some things to think about, I think, when the levy committee reconvenes itself. And just a concluding thought in my report, I think, well, this year has been crazy for sure. I think next week is Thanksgiving, and take a minute to thank our community for their patience. And, you know, as we navigate new roads in this pandemic, once again, I know it's been tiring, and I hope that while Thanksgiving will surely be different for many this year, that everyone has a safe and healthy holiday. And so that's my report. Dave, do you have anything you would like to add this evening?
Nothing more than what we've talked about with contact tracing.
And I want to give a shout out to Dave because he's done a heck of a job being that conduit between the district and the health department. And especially last week, I mean, we were on the phone at all different hours of the day. So thank you, Dave. You ready for my recommendations?
Good.
All right, we're asking you to accept the following resignations this evening under the personnel motion. Asia Rendek as the MHS Assistant Swim Coach, Corey Willis as the MHS Assistant Girls Track Coach. Both are effective October 28th, 2020. to accept the resignation of Tracy Powell, North Elementary custodian, effective October 29th, 2020. We're asking you to enter into the following employment contracts to employ Katie Rusin under a long-term substitute teacher contract from October 26th, 2020 through November 24th, 2020 to perform the duties of Lindsay Fiore. We're asking you to approve as a casual day-to-day sub, Amanda Semenik. The following certificated personnel under a one-year limited supplemental contract for the 2019-2020 contract. Oh, please add that correction. It's not 2019. Let's get out 2020-21 contract year in the position of Mike Martin as MHS Assistant Girls Track Coach and Jocelyn Kilpatrick as MHS Key Club Advisor. The following non-certificated persons under a one-year limited personal service contract for the 2020-21 school year. Terry Hennessy, MHS Assistant Swim Coach. And then to employ Taylor Foltz under a contract as an educational assistant at Madison Pre-K for 1 day, November 4th, 2020, at the rate and compensation of $10.20 per hour. And as a side note, she took the job and then felt that it wasn't the right position for her. So that's why it was a 1 day. And those are the personnel motions this evening.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
John Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
yes,
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
vote is 5-0.
All right, and under, there's a resolution this evening declaring American Education Week, November 16th through the 20th. So thank you to all the educators in our community.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
yes,
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
John Douglas,
Yes.
vote is 5-0.
All right, the next item is to adopt the annual report on nutrition standards in the district for the school year 2020-21. And it is in compliance with enforcing all nutrition standards as outlined in state law and USDA regulations, whichever is stricter. These standards are detailed in the board policies listed below, beginning with 8,500 food service and ending with 8,550 competitive food sales.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
yes,
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
John Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery,
Yes.
vote is 5-0.
The next item on the agenda is the board policy update. This is the second reading and adoption of the following board policies, beginning with 1520 employment of administrators and 8800 religious patriotic ceremonies and observations. We did the first reading last month.
I'll move.
A second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Brian Horvath,
yes,
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
John Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
vote is 5-0.
And on the consent calendar, there are several items on the agenda to approve the contract for the services of one interpreter and one gifted coordinator between Madison Local School District and the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio for the 2020-21 school year. To approve the contract between the Madison Local School District and Danny Prater for sign language interpreting services for the 2020-21 school year. To authorize the execution and delivery of a renewal agreement to the Master Electric Energy Sales Agreement between the district and Power for Schools endorsed electric supplier NG Resources LLC, and to approve a service agreement with Hometown Ticketing for online ticket sales.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
yes,
vote is 5-0.
All right, we'll now open the second public participation portion. This is on any item that anyone would like to address the board on. You'll have 5 minutes, and we would ask that you state your name and address for the board.
Let's see, I'll unmute Emily.
Hi, my name's Emily Graw, live in 114 Tinker's Trail in Chardon, Ohio. I'm the Middle School National Junior Honor Society advisor, and I just wanted to give a shout out to our middle schoolers. There are 42 of them that turned in service hours for the first quarter, even though they were exempt from doing that because of the pandemic. But they were given the option that should they want to, they could. And we had 42 out of 53 that turned in hours, and they still managed to get a total of 307 volunteer hours. And all of the stuff they did was either virtual or in social distancing situations that I was pretty impressed, because I'll be honest, I didn't expect a lot of them to have a lot of opportunity, but they got very creative. In fact, some of them even took on the challenge to teach their grandparents how to Zoom, which I think was a significant amount of hours
I love
to do that. But they reached out to senior citizens' homes and tried to connect them virtually with relatives as well. And they did a lot of cards and things like that. So it was really impressive of just how many of them were willing to still kind of step outside that box and get creative, even when they didn't have to. That's it.
Emily, now that you've shared that, I'm going to probably have the communications people just reach out to you to put it in my next good news, because I think that's something the community needs to see and hear in another way. So,
And I like to put it out there. One thing I kind of stress with them, which I think is really hard, especially for middle school students, is that part of this program is doing it without getting rewarded. And so I always like to say it here because I do want them to be recognized, but they do it knowing that they're not necessarily going to get anything tangible in return. And I think that's hard, especially when they become members as sixth graders. A lot of them are expecting like the blue ribbon or, you know, something in return. So it's nice to see that they're stepping up even when they don't have to. And a lot of those students that did it are virtual students, so they're not even in the building. So
that's
nice to see.
Nice.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board?
So I'm going to do the same drill with Jeff. If he wants to unmute, he can. Gretchen's been able to do her video on and off. So, I think I did it. I'm not seeing anybody, Sean.
Okay. So we'll close the public participation. We have a need for executive session. Is it number 1, Angela?
Yeah, I think that's the best. Yeah. That's what
All right, we have a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public employees or regulated individuals, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or regulated individual unless such person requests a public hearing.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
yes.
Gene Sensi,
Yes.
vote is 5-0.
All right, as Michelle always reminds me, we will not be conducting any business when we return from executive session. And so we now stand in recess.
Okay, while he's getting